Yavaivar Kave Have Sridina Kave Have Sridina Kave Have Kave Nityananda Mora Kori Doya Charaibo Mora Vishayera Maya Mora Kori Doya Charaibo Mora Vishayera Kave Nityananda More Kori Doya Charaibe Mora Vishayera Maya Diya more nija charanera chaya na mera haatete diveya dhikar na mera haatete diveya dhikar diya more chacha charanera chaya na mere haatete diveya dhikar charanera chaya na mere haatete diveya dhikar Kave Have bolo Sridina Kave Have Sridina Kave Have Sridina Kave Have Kini bolutibo Hari Nama Rasa Nama Rasa Mati Hoibe Vivasa Hari Nama Rasa Nama Rasa Mati Hoibe Vivasa Kini bolutibo Hari Nama Rasa Nama Rasa Mati Hoy Vivasa Hari Nama Rasa Nama Rasa Mati Hoy Vivasa Rase Rasika Charana Parasha Koriya Mojibo Rase Yanivan Rasika Charana Parasha Koriya Mojibo Rase Yanivan Rasika Charana Parasha Koriya Mojibo Rase Yanivan Rasika Parasha Koriya Mojibo Kave Have bolo Sridina Kave Have Sridina Kave Have bolo Sridina Kave Have Kave jibe doya hoibe udaya nije sukha bhuli sudinar doya hoibe udaya nija sukha bhuli Kave nije doya hoibe udaya निज सुख भूलि सुदीन हृदया भगति विनोदान करिया विनया श्री अज्ञाता हला करिबे प्रचार करिया विनया श्री अज्ञाता हला करिबे प्रचार भगति विनोदान करिया विनया श्री अज्ञाता हला करिबे प्रचार करिया विनया श्री अज्ञाता हला करिबे प्रचार कभी हवे बोलो से दिन कभी हवे बोलो से दिन कभी हवे बोलो से दिन कभी हवे कभी हवे बोलो से दिन कभी हवे से दिन हरे हरे से दिन हरे हरे जय भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर प्रभु पदा भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर प्रभु पदा जय भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर प्रभु पदा जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद लगा देना
Translation. Then, oh, when will that day be mine, when my offenses ceasing, taste for the day increasing, when in my heart will your mercy shine, lower than a blade of grass, more taller than a tree, when will my mind attain this quiet? Respectful to all, not expecting their honor, then I shall taste the names of my nectar. Great wealth. Followers of feminine beauty, I would care for them, offer the comforts of my body. Birth after birth, give me, O Lord, golden, causeless devotional service to your holy spirit. When will I utter Krishna, 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 with voice choked up and shivering body? When will my body change color and my eyes flow with endless tears as I chant? When will I give up all thought of the world and society to run like a madman along the banks of the ages in Nairobi, singing and dancing and sincerely calling out the names of Gaura and Nityananda? When will Lord Nityananda show mercy upon me? When will I reject the world of God? When will He give the shade of His Holy Spirit and the right to enter the marketplace, Amahata, of the holy name? When will I buy, borrow, or steal the ecstasies of the holy name? When will I lose myself in the intoxication of the holy name? When will I immerse myself in the nectar of the holy name after grasping the feet of the saint who constantly relishes the flavors, rasads of devotion? When will I feel compassionate for all living beings, jivas? When will I forget my own pleasure in genuine purity? And when will I, Bhakti meekly go from door to door, preaching the message of God? Srila Bhakti Thakur ki, Hare Krishna Mahaprabhu ki, Vishnu Krishna Prabhupada, Hare Guru. Jai Radha Jai Radha
Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Dhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jayo Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe Jayo Radhe Jayo Radhe 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 Shri Radhe Jayo Nitai Gorango Nitai Gorango Nitai Gorango Jayo Nitai Goranga Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivaradagacharya Ashtotra Shri Srimad Divine Grace Abhay Charana Arvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text number 3. Jijñāsitam Sushampannam Jijñāsitam Sushampannam Jijñāsitam Susampannam Api te mahat adbhutam Api te mahad adbhutam Api te mahad adbhutam Kritavan bharatam yaha tvam Kritavan bharatam yastvam कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् अपि ते महदद्भुतं कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् अपि ते महदद्भुतं कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् अपि ते महदद्भुतं कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् अपि ते महदद्भुतं कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं जिज्ञासितं सुसंपन्नम् अपि ते महदद्भुतं कृतवान् भारतं यस्त्वं सर्वार्थ परिबृंहितं. Synonyms: जिज्ञासितं, fully inquired; सुसंपन्नम, well versed; अपि, in spite of; ते, your; महद अद्भुतम, great and wonderful; कृतवान, prepared; भारतम, the Mahabharata; यह त्वं, what you have done; सर्व अर्था, including all sequences; परिबृंहितम, elaborately explained. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: no doubt your inquiries were full and your studies also well fulfilled, since you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. Translation with repetition: no doubt your enquiries were full and your studies also well fulfilled, since you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The despondency of Vyasadeva was certainly not due to his lack of sufficient knowledge, because as a student he had fully inquired about the Vedic literatures, as a result of which the Mahabharata was compiled with full explanation of the Vedas. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are continuing to read this particular verse. This particular verse was spoken by Sri Narada Muni to the despondent Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was very, very sorrow despite compiling all the Vedic literatures, and he was feeling very despondent. Despondent means very sorrowful, very sad. He cannot come out of that sadness. Looking at the plight of Vyasadeva, Narada speaks these words. What does he say? He says, my dear Vyasa, your enquiries were full. Your enquiries were complete. Your enquiries about God, about the soul, about Paramatma, what this existence is, were all full. They were all complete. And your studies also well fulfilled. The goal of the Vedic literature is to understand the absolute truth. You have presented about the impersonal feature of the absolute truth very well. To understand one aspect of the absolute truth, impersonal feature is one of the features of the absolute truth, and you have presented it very well. So your studies were also well fulfilled. Jijnasitam susampannam. Jijnasitam means enquiries. Your enquiries were full. And susampannam, you are well versed. Your knowledge is complete, it is fulfilled. The purpose for which it was written. And you have also compiled Mahadadbhutam, the great and wonderful work. What is that wonderful work? The Mahabharata. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva for the benefit of the less intelligent beings. The Bhagavatam describes that the Mahabharata was described for those who cannot understand the Vedic literatures. And what does the Mahabharata contain? The Mahabharata contains Sarva Artha Paribramhitam. Here Artha refers to the Vedas. All the Vedic knowledge is there in the Mahabharata, and it is very sequentially presented in the Mahabharata. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences, and it is elaborately explained. This is what the Mahabharata contains. So this is what Narada Muni is saying. You have done all this work, yet you are feeling despondent. So we'll just go to the next verse. What does Narada continue to say to Vyasadeva, who's feeling despondent? Let us see. Jijnasitam aditham cha brahma yattat sanatanam tatapi shochasi atmanam akritartha iva prabho. This is the next verse which Narada is saying. My dear Vyasadeva, you have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman. Brahman yattat sanatanam, as well as the knowledge derived from that understanding of Brahman. What is that knowledge? That I am eternal. Brahmam yattat sanatanam. Brahman is the impersonal Brahman, and the knowledge that one gets by understanding Brahman is that I am sanatana, I am eternal. So the knowledge derived therefrom and the understanding of impersonal Brahman, you have fully delineated in your work. Then Narada asks, Tatapi shochasi atmanam, why should you be despondent in spite of this? You've written such wonderful literatures which describes about Brahman, and it also describes about Sanatanam, the eternal nature of the soul, yet you're feeling despondent. Why are you feeling despondent? So Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says, Vyasadeva compiled the Vedanta Sutra. We all know the Vedanta Sutra. Sutra means is an axiom. Correct? It's an axiomatic statement. It is compacted with knowledge. The conclusion of all the knowledge is put in one single sentence. That's called as a sutra. So to decode the sutras, we cannot decode it by ourselves. We need the guidance of an acharya. So he did all this work. the Vedanta Sutra or the Brahma Sutra compiled by Sri Vyasadeva is the full deliberation of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. What does this Vedanta Sutra contain? It contains the description of the impersonal absolute truth. And it is accepted as the most exalted philosophical exposition in the world. It's the greatest philosophical explanation. There is no philosophy greater than what is there in the Vedanta Sutra. That's the kind of a compilation Vyasadeva has done. It covers the subject of eternity, and the methods are scholarly. It's great scholarship one can see in the Vedanta Sutra. So, yet Vyasadeva is despondent. The greatest philosophy in the world, yet Vyasadeva is despondent. He's feeling sad. Why is Vyasadeva feeling sad? So Prabhupada describes about why is Vyasadeva feeling sad. It is said that in the material world, one is engrossed with the idea of identifying with the body or the mind with the self. And people who identify with the body and the mind, they feel despondent. My dear Vyasadeva, why are you feeling despondent? Why are you feeling despondent? So, the answer to that, in response to that, Vyasadeva says that, my dear Narada, I've come to you, I've approached you. Why? Because I do not know the answer to your question. I'm feeling despondent. I've written the greatest philosophy of the world, yet I'm feeling despondent. I don't know why. Can you see? So, we should understand a very, very important point here. Scholarship, knowledge, erudition, great learning, all of these things cannot help a person understand his real position. The real position of the living entity is extremely happy. And that is being described in the Bhagavad Gita as, there is a verse, Sukam atyantikam yattat buddhigrahyam atindriyam. There is a sukha, there is a kind of a happiness which is transcendental to the modes of material nature. And Krishna also describes that anybody who's in the mode of material nature, what are the modes of material nature? Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna and Tamo-guna. And the knowledge that is an outcome of Sattva-guna, the knowledge that is an outcome of Rajo-guna, and the knowledge that is an outcome of Tamo-guna, these are described in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that anybody who is actually identifying himself as the spirit soul, and he sees other living entities as spirit soul, that person is situated in the knowledge of Sattva-guna. He is a sattvic person. But somebody who sees different living entities in different bodies, he is said to be situated in Rajoguna. Somebody who believes that work is all in all they have to do is to maintain my body, such person is said to be situated in Tamoguna. So there are three kinds of knowledge, and all these three knowledge that of the living entity tends to have, puts a person in despondency or in a state of sorrow. So this is what we can understand. Vyasadeva's birth is very interesting. Why is he called Vyasa? Vyasa means one who has compiled the Vedic literature is called Vyasadev. Another name for Vyasadev is called Dvaipayana Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. What is the meaning of Dvaipayana? Dvaipayana is derived from the root word called Dvipa. Dvipa means island. So the Mahabharata describes about the birth of Vyasadeva. Who wrote the Mahabharata? No, who wrote? Vyasadeva dictated Mahabharata, but who wrote? Ganesha. Because Vyasadeva was contemplating this such great work, who will write? Because it involves so much of writing. So then Ganesha made a proposition, I will definitely write the Mahabharata, which is running into lakhs of verses. I will write, but under one condition. Do you know what is that condition? He said, you should never stop. I will never stop writing. Under that condition, you should keep dictating. I will keep writing. If you stop, I will leave and go. So Vyasadeva agreed, but Vyasadeva, being a very intelligent person, he said, my dear Lord Ganesh, I will definitely dictate without any break. But whatever you write, you should think, understand, assimilate, and then write. So then Ganesha agreed. Then Vyasa started explaining the Mahabharata. So there are complicated Vedic knowledge which is there in the Mahabharata also. So Ganesha took a pause. He's thinking, assimilating, and then writing. So Vyasadeva in this way got some time. So the Mahabharata was written by Lord Ganesha. And the Mahabharata describes about a king by name King Vasu. This King Vasu was a descendant of Paurava dynasty, and Vasu was a very pious person. He wanted to renounce everything and do austerities and tapasya and become a devotee of the Lord. Indra, on the other hand, he thought that this person is taking a lot of austerities and tapasya to take my post. So Indra intervened. He said, my dear Vasu, you are doing so much of tapasya. Can you please stop doing tapasya? You have your duties as a king. And Vasu agreed to that request of Indra. And he said, my dear Lord Indra, you have descended from heaven just to give me this piece of advice. I will take this into my heart and I will execute my duty. So Vasu continued to execute his duty, and Indra, being pleased with Vasu, he gave him a crystal chariot as a gift. And the speciality of this chariot is that it is the only chariot which can go to any planet. It can go to heavenly planet, it can go to hellish planet, any planet. Therefore, this Maharaj Vasu was called Uparichara Vasu. Uparichara means one who can travel everywhere. So this Vasu was called Uparichara Vasu. So Vasu had a wife by name Girika, and from Girika, what happened? It so happened that the vital fluid from the man's body, which brings life, it so happened that it was carried by an eagle. And this eagle which was flying high, there was another eagle thought that, something is being carried by this eagle in the mouth. And this second eagle began to attack. And this vital fluid which it was carrying fell into the ocean. And once this vital liquid fell into the ocean, there was a fish in the ocean. And this fish took that vital fluid. And later when the fisherman caught that fish, two children, because it was, carrying that vital fluid, 2 children were born. One was called Matsya, he became a king, and second one was Satyavati. This fish apparently was cursed to become a fish. She was actually an Apsara by name Adrika. And that is how Satyavati was born. Satyavati was born very beautiful, and because the fisherman caught that fish and took care of both the children, Satyavati became associated with the fisherman's family. And when somebody is associated with a fisherman's family, fish is kept at home, it smells very bad. So Satyavati had a very bad odor emanating from her body. And her duty was to ferry a boat across the river. That is a service that she used to do as a means of livelihood. Once Parashara Muni was traveling in that boat. By the will of Providence, Parashara Muni got a direction in his heart that Satyavati is going to carry in her womb one of the greatest scholars ever. So Parashara Muni had to give birth to a greatest scholar through Satyavati. But Satyavati said, "My dear Parashara Muni, you're a great sage. Now that you're traveling in my boat, there are many sages around this river. What will they think? Plus, I'm an unmarried woman. If I beget a child, who will marry me?" So Parashara said, "My dear Satyavati, you will not lose your virginity. You will immediately give birth to a child the moment I touch you. And the child will grow up within one day to become an adult." And then Parashara, what he did, to cover from the eyesight of all the sages around the river, he created an artificial fog. And then Parashara and Satyavati, they gave birth to a child on an island in the middle of a river. So the child was born within one day. Within one day, the child grew up to be an adult. And that child, because it was born in the middle of an island, was called Dvaipayana. That's how Vyasadeva got his name as Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Dvaipayana means one who was born in a Dvipa. So this is how Vyasadeva was born. So Vyasadeva, of course, later he got his name as Vyasa because he compiled all the Vedic literatures for the benefit of the people in Kali Yuga. And that Vyasadeva, who's so exalted, today is feeling despondent. Feeling despondent. Why was he feeling despondent? That is what the entire Vedic literature is. That is what the entire talk is all about. If you see the life of great scholarly people, even in the material world, great people, today technology has been the greatest invention of man, no doubt. Today we are living in such kind of a comfortable atmosphere where we are having a microphone, we are having a laptop, we are technologically advanced. Science has made a tremendous contribution and people believe a lot in science, which is true. But if you take a look at the background of some scientists, great scientists, I'm not telling some ordinary, great scientists, were they not feeling despondent? In fact, despondent is not sufficient of a word to describe what they were undergoing in their personal life. All of you will be surprised to know Isaac Newton. All of you know Newton? Newton, brought about a great revolution in science, because of which there was industrial revolution and so much of technology from him. It is said that he had intense periods of depression, anxiety, and bipolar episodes. Who? Isaac Newton. Correct? He's said to be like the pioneers of science. Charles Darwin suffered for decades from chronic anxiety, panic-like symptoms, digestive problems, psychosomatic diseases, which means some psychological problem is there that is manifest in the body also. It severely limited his social life. He used to not come into social gatherings. Can you see? Erudite scholarship. This is what the education system is trying to provide to all of us. No wonder people are getting into depression. Because the founding fathers are in depression. How can the society not be in depression? Should we not think about this? Alan Turing. Who's Alan Turing? Anybody knows? He is the pioneer of computer science and artificial intelligence. ChatGPT, he's the pioneer. He's like a founding father. He was prosecuted for homosexuality, forced to undergo a hormone treatment. He died by suicide in 1954. Great scientists. Their works are being studied in universities. Then somebody from mechanical engineering probably might remember. Anybody from mechanical engineering? So there in thermodynamics there is something called as a Boltzmann constant. Ludwig Boltzmann. He suffered from severe depression. Correct? Severe depression. Are you in that line? Mood swings. Too much of mood swings. Mental health was worsened by professional conflicts and feeling misunderstood. Like this, I made a list of scientists. I cannot read here, paucity of time. There are a list of scientists who are founding fathers of technological revolution. The modern educational system's foundation is based on these scientists' discoveries. And they themselves are in depression. What can we expect of students who study the same subject? So it's a time to think and ponder on. Okay, let's forget all these people. Vyasadeva, who knows Brahman, he is despondent. At least he has not been in depression. He's despondent. He's not able to, he's feeling sorrow in his heart. And what did he do for that? It's not that he is able to find solution for his despondency. He approached a spiritual master to solve the despondency. And the spiritual master, Narada, solved his despondency. That is why when the living entity is caught by the material nature, he will not know how to unwind himself from material nature on his own. It's like a person, imagine he's tied to a chair using a rope. Tight rope. Can he come out by himself? You need an external person to remove the rope, no? Similarly, the living entity is bound in this material world by the three gunas. The other meaning for the word guna means rope. He's tied by them. And only a spiritual master can untie that rope. And how does he untie the rope? He unties the rope of the living entity by pouring transcendental knowledge. By giving transcendental knowledge. Because the binding of the living entity is the binding of ignorance. If the ignorance has to be removed, knowledge has to flow. It has to flow from a bona fide spiritual master. Not from some guru. A bona fide spiritual master like Narada. Somebody on the caliber of Vyasadeva can get into depression, into despondency. What about us? Therefore, Prabhupada, who is a representative of Narada, is there for all of us. To take us out of this situation. To make us realize our situation. And he gives the transcendental knowledge. So then somebody might question, then transcendental knowledge Prabhupada can give. What about others? There are so many people who do not know about Prabhupada. How do they attain transcendental knowledge? So that is actually described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. How does one attain transcendental knowledge? So in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes that a living entity has to perform sacrifices. We all know the famous verse from the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Yajnartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanah. If you want to get out of this karma bandhana, one has to perform yajna or sacrifice. There are different types of sacrifices prescribed for different living entities. That is being described in the 4th chapter. I will just quickly read through that. Krishna says in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that there are some who sacrifice the process of hearing. How do they sacrifice the process of hearing? By hearing about the Vedic literatures. So Prabhupada describes a brahmachari's duty is to sacrifice by hearing the Vedic literatures. Some of them sacrifice the objects of senses, such as sound in the sacrifice of fire. Some yogis worship the demigods by offering different types of sacrifices. And some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman, the impersonalists. They meditate on the Supreme Brahman. That is also a form of sacrifice. Some of them sacrifice their material possessions by giving charity. Take strict vows and practices of the Eightfold Yoga system. Some of them sacrifice by hearing and studying the Vedas, Swadhyaya. There are others who sacrifice by practicing the breath control. There are others who perform sacrifices by offering charity. And performance of sacrifice, Krishna says, Nayam lokosti agnyasya kutonya kuru sattama. Without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet. You cannot live happily. Then what to do? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that there are some people who are offering charity, that is also sacrifice. Some of them are controlling the breath. Some of them are hearing the Vedic literature. But all of these sacrifices that a person is performing should ultimately come to transcendental knowledge, divya jnana. They should attain that. Otherwise, there is no meaning for the sacrifice. Therefore, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Shreyan dravyam ayadya jnana yajna parantapa sarvam karma kilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Jnane parisamapyate means the sacrifice of knowledge is greater than sacrifice of material possession. After all, the sacrifice of all the work culminates in transcendental knowledge. This is what is prescribed for somebody who is not in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord. But somebody who is in touch with the pure devotee of the Lord, what should he do? Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Approach a bona fide spiritual master and then inquire from him. Prabhupada says that human beings should have the spirit of inquiry. What is God? Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? What am I supposed to do in this world? The spirit of inquiry is a must to approach a spiritual master. If somebody is not having these kind of inquiries, Prabhupada says in one of the lectures in this verse that one need not approach a spiritual master. So one should inquire submissively from a spiritual master, surrender unto him, not blindly, inquire from him, pariprashnena, inquire from him, question him, not in a challenging spirit, but in the spirit of learning and do service unto his lotus feet. And by doing that, divya jnana, hridaya prakashito. Therefore, the longer you stay in the Krishna consciousness movement, you will see that the same Bhagavad Gita will reveal multitudes or different types or deeper understanding you will develop. the more you associate with Prabhupada, the more you serve Prabhupada's movement. Some of you have just come in touch with the Krishna consciousness movement very recently. Correct? And you have some reverence for Prabhupada and you have some understanding about Bhagavad Gita. And the longer you stay in the Krishna consciousness movement, you will see Prabhupada reciprocates. And how does he reciprocate? He reciprocates by transcendental knowledge. The same Bhagavad Gita you read 2 years after being initiated with Prabhupada, you will see different understanding. 4 years, different understanding. 6 years, different understanding. Because Bhagavad Gita is so deep, very, very deep. Many times we tend to think that Bhagavad Gita, recently I was talking to somebody, so they were saying, Bhagavad Gita is very preliminary study. It talks about body and soul. Correct? Bhagavatam talks about philosophy and all that. But one should go beyond all that. He was telling like that. Should go beyond all that. We should read Rupa Goswami's Gopala Champu. You should read Sanatana Goswami's different literatures. No. Depth means depth of realization. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, one of the greatest acharyas in our parampara, he was not a scholarly person. But he could explain the fine nuances of the spiritual knowledge very, very eloquently to people. Why? He was carrying Divya Jnana Hriday Prakashito. And how has he received that? From his spiritual master. And today we have an opportunity to serve Pranipatena, to surrender unto a spiritual master, to serve a spiritual master, to ask relevant enquiries from a spiritual master. And Prabhupada is living with us. How is he living with us? He's living with us in the form of the deity. He's living with us in the form of his Vani. He's living with us in the form of his books. By continuously associating with the spiritual master and developing a relationship with the spiritual master. When we tend to read or associate with the deity, you should always understand we are developing a relationship with the spiritual master. And what is that relationship? And Prabhupada describes, why does a disciple serve the Guru? He feels gratitude for the knowledge that he has given. So the beginning of a relationship is gratitude. Gratitude develops into great respect, and respect develops into love for the spiritual master. So a devotee has to have a sense of gratitude, a feeling of gratitude for the spiritual master, serve the spiritual master lovingly. Then the revelation of Krishna, of who we are, will happen. Then actually, Sukam Atyantikam Yattad Buddhigrahyam Atindriyam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Atindriya, Indriya means senses. Atindriya means that which is beyond the senses. So one has to experience that happiness beyond the senses. One has to associate with the spiritual master, serve the spiritual master, and ask relevant inquiries from him. Then this knowledge will be revealed within the heart of a disciple. So Vyasadeva was feeling despondent here in this case, mainly because he has not elaborately described about the transcendental nature of the supreme absolute truth Krishna. And that knowledge was actually given by Narada. And Narada pointed out this. He said, my dear Vyasadeva, you have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord Krishna. Rather, you are focused on the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. You are scholarly. It's great. There is great erudition in your knowledge. But still, you're feeling despondent because you don't have knowledge about Krishna. And that very same knowledge about Krishna, Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering us freely. That therefore is described Namo Mahavadanyaya, the most munificent incarnation. Why? That knowledge, greatest knowledge, he's freely distributing of Krishna Prema. So, therefore, this is something which we will be getting not that in this lifetime. Many, many billions of lifetimes we have got one opportunity. So, we should take this moment seriously, because if you miss this life, you don't know when you will be born when Prabhupada is there, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is there on this planet, we don't know when. Because life is very, very short. Prabhupada says life is very, very short. So in this short period of time, let us make the best use of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Take this opportunity very seriously and take that next step to surrender to the spiritual master. So what do we do to surrender? That is something that you will have to decide. Correct? Take guidance from devotees and see how this can be taken forward. Okay? So with this we'll stop here. Any doubts anybody has? Any questions before we stop? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Vishnu Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nithai Gaur Premanande.